One concern that I saw had to do with the time horizon. How long do we have before X, Y, or Z happens, and what do we need to be doing right away, and what can be done over a longer period of time? Some of you have already mentioned this, but maybe a short version, something that could be done in the next up to 5 years, something that would be done over the next 15 or 20 years, just so people have a sense of, what is the time frame within which they need to react. Something quick, simple.
Well, as I said earlier, government reacts to emergencies. So it may be that wherever you happen to live, that the government wouldn't respond until it became critical. In the short term, however, it's important that, as a matter of public policy, that the governments acknowledge that it is a problem and that it has to be addressed, and they should do something earlier rather than later, just because, as I mentioned before, spreading the expense out over a number of years is certainly more rational than waiting until the end. I know that in Annapolis, we have gotten some funding through Emergency Management Administration to put valves on some of our, they're called duckbill valves because they open and close like that, to put them on some of our storm drain outfalls so that as the water rises up, the water can't get into the storm drain and back up in the streets, which is very typical downtown. Hopefully that will eliminate some of the problem, the episodic flooding in the short term. In the long term, of course, it's not going to matter because the water's going to get so high that really won't do anything. But hopefully that kind of addresses that question.
I just, from a land use perspective, land use decisions take a long lead time. So you have, the process for changing the decision-making process for a land use context is you have a comprehensive plan, and that can take years and years and years to update. And then once you update that comprehensive plan, you amend your zoning ordinance or your floodplain ordinance to reflect the decisions you make as a community in your comprehensive plan about where you want development to go. And this can sometimes be a decade-long process. And then once you have those regulations in place, it can take another several decades for those land use changes to actually to have effect on the ground about what's developed and where it's developed and how it's developed. So in terms of changing your built environment and deciding as a community where you want to allow development and where you want to allow increased development, those decisions are best started, as early as possible, and start the process about considering climate change in your comprehensive plan and, your hazard mitigation plan, the planning documents, as Zoe was talking about, that really affect long-term decision making down the road.
If you keep in mind that the projections that you folks are modeling in the visualizations are based on not a except for the present trends one, which is linear. The others are not really a straight line. They go up faster and faster with time. So it means that the rates of sea level rise that we expect to see in the last half of the century are going to be faster than you'll see now. And this means to me that a couple of things. First of all, as I said earlier, we'll have a better understanding of what those conditions are. So there's some decisions we can that relate to what sea level we might confront late in the century that we can kind of postpone. On the other hand, if we're making decisions now about infrastructure that we expect to last 50, 100 years, we need to take those into account now. Shorter term decisions in infrastructure we can not have to worry so much about, just deal with the more immediate challenges that we face. So it really is important that we not kind of overreact and panic and say, oh my word, we're going to all be inundated. We've got to take immediate action on everything. There are some things that we need to act prudently on now where we have immediate issues. There are other things that we're making long-term investments that we expect to be around by the end of the century we need to tend to now. And there are other decisions we can postpone and get smarter about as we go on.